Greetings from LA, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our journey, our discussions, our discoveries, and our explorations with respect to the recent releases made by the Criterion Collection during this year of 2023. And specifically, I'd like to focus on this wonderful set which is designated by Criterion collectively at spine number 1189. And it is a set which is right here. It's a Blu-ray set, 4 discs, and it is Bo Widerberg's New Swedish Cinema. So we have already begun a discussion of this wonderful set, and I'd like to continue on, if I may, with such discussion series, focusing in on the second feature film, on the second Blu-ray disc of this set. Directed by Bo Widerberg. And this is a film which is described as being from the year 1963, and it is directed by Bo Widerberg. And the name of this film, and please pardon me for my poor pronunciation of the language, I hope you can forgive me, but it is Varteret Korpen, or as it's known in English, Raven's End. This is the film which is described as being from the year 1963, and oh my goodness, this is another great one. This is really fantastic, and it is a film which is described as being written and directed by Bo Widerberg, and it has among its cast Tommy Berggren, and it's again another example of this great working relationship between Tommy Berggren and Bo Widerberg, and it is this film which is Raven's End. And again, my apologies, my deepest apologies for my terrible pronunciation of the Swedish language. I am doing my very best, but I'm going to make a lot of mistakes, so I apologize. But with that being said, Raven's End, courtesy of the Criterion Collection, this set on disc number 2. And we have a continuation of the feature filmography of the artist, director extraordinaire, writer, critic, director-writer extraordinaire Bo Widerberg in this film, which is Raven's End. What a brilliant film this is. And if we are to try to focus on the plot or story structure, we can focus in on this community in Sweden, and it seems to be a community that is again in Malmö, Sweden, and focusing in on a particular district, maybe in terms of class or class strata or class representations. It seems somewhat poor or impoverished. It is focusing in on a family in particular, the mother, father, and also the key role of Tommy Berggren's character and Anders, and in the midst of the 1930s, and how his feelings and his growth and his journey into adulthood in many ways forms one of the key arcs of this film, because we see him and the daily life in terms of the joys and the struggles with his family, his parents, the way in which he interacts with his parents, how they interact with each other, and a type of moments of tranquil peace, and also moments of emotional disquiet, and also moments of perhaps chaos and disruption, and how this all informs maybe the self introspection, or the self identity, or the self-worth of the Tommy Berggren character, and his context in the context of the working classes and the working class struggles, and the highs and lows that is part of his life, and indeed the life of his family and the small knit community that we see depicted in this film, A Raven's End, Malmö, and others, again in this historical context. We also see not just the internal or psychological struggles, but we also get glimpses or hints, or perhaps even direct references to external forces things that are happening outside, again, by virtue of the sweep of history that we know it, and as the characters in this world become aware of through the radio, through events that are occurring outside of themselves, but still occurring. And so we have this very interesting and deep, vividly portrayed portrait of this family and this community, again, with the Tommy Bergren character front and center, and choices that are going to be made or that are being made as the film indeed progresses. And those choices may be in concert with or perhaps in conflict against the very identity and nature of this physical environment, which is at the center of this film, Raven's End. And what that means in terms of the family unit, what that means in terms of a type of future for the characters involved, what that means in terms of answers that might lead to maybe a sense of subservience or a sense of defiance. And that sense of subservience or a sense of defiance is again expressed in the context of socio-political and cultural environments, the class strata depictions, and the day-to-day interactions between, say, the characters and their parents, the characters and other members of their family, the characters and their intimate, say, romances, and emotional ups and downs, highs and lows, and how they feel about each other, and what that means for the future, depending on the choices that are made by characters like Tommy Bergren's Anders and others. This is, and all the while focusing in on the intimate detail and beauty and a type of grace, if you will, of these day-to-day moments, of the quote-unquote little things that make up these huge things, and looks and moments between characters when things are happening that are quite dramatic or indeed quote-unquote quiet and peaceful. And but all the while there's a type of psychological workings or inner workings of each of these characters that are either organically linked with the place that surrounds them, or that are inherently against the place that surrounds them. So I think these types of choices and life choices are at the very heart and soul of this film, Raven's End, which is a beautiful work, another very vivid work that also, I think, straddles the balance very well between what one might perceive to be an attempt at using the camera in a cinema verite-like way on the one hand. There's a sense of quote-unquote realism, which I think is captured so lovingly. At the same time, there is the application of style. There's a way in which the high drama of various circumstances, I think, is shown very clearly. And there's some great performances that are also given a great breadth of style that has a sense of the emotionally dramatic. And so which also has its links too with a sense of theater and a sense of cinematic expressions of the theater, and while also at the same time giving great glimpses and insights into the psychological portraits of these characters. Name, for example, husband and wife, mother and son, and the pasts of these characters, and how certain details of the past inform the relationships in the present. It's devastating. It's quiet. It's lovingly portrayed. It's also true to form and true to a sense of the integrity of these characters. So it's a beautiful, very touching film. Very complex film as well, and a lot's shown through the wonderful way that the camera glides and captures these moments. I should mention here the camera work here is the cinematography by Jan Lindström, and again written and directed by Bo Widerberg. And the performances here are incredible. I should point out, for example, the great performance by Tommy Bergren, and we'll talk a little bit more about him when we speak about one of the supplements here. And we also have the great depictions of generational shifts and gaps, and how those might be indications of a type of parallel structure history repeating itself, both in the intimate setting and also in the macro setting as well. So, and whether that's a good thing, quote unquote, good thing or a bad thing, and it's all shown through in these great performances, so well. Kevin Helm and Elmi Storm, I should mention as well. This is quite remarkable indeed. I am, like the earlier film, The Baby Carriage, I am watching this film for the first time, thanks to this great release by the Criterion Collection. And I was, again, thunderstruck. Incredible. This is an incredible film. I mean, it was heralded, I understand, in terms of the critical praise that was bestowed upon this upon its release. I think very deservingly so, now that I've seen this film a number of times now, thanks to this Criterion release. This is deep. It hooks you, I think, immediately, and there's this great way of showing in a direct way that which is, and not casting any type of moral or seemingly inorganically imposed, say, moral view of the filmmaker. On the contrary, it has a very organic sense of respect and giving the characters space, which I love, while also showing these aspects of detail, which also is reminding us too that this is a work of narrative fiction because of the way in which history is being depicted. So the sense of the depiction of history in the 1930s, while at the same time giving us a sense of that in the focal lens of the currency of the moment. So modernity and tradition, again, showing itself yet again in the work by Bo Widerberg, this time, though, in the context of a film set in the past, in the historical past. So I thought this was great. This is great. Again, I thought The Baby Carriage was splendid, fantastic. That was a modern day film. Here we have a historical setting, but never giving us any distance, or never giving us a sense of distance. On the contrary, giving us a sense of closeness with the subject matter, with the film that we're watching. And I think that closeness is, again, inherent in the power of this wonderful balance, counterbalance that we see in Bo Widerberg's films, thanks in large part to many aspects, including which the performances. So, Raven's End. This is a film. This is another jewel. This is a gem of a film. I'm so glad I was able to watch this, and I've seen it now already a number of times. I'm struck by the way that it sort of undulates, the waves of emotional highs and lows, and when it reaches its lows, it really gets you. There are some scenes and revelations that are heartbreaking. And there are choices that are also very potentially liberating, but also very heartbreaking at the same time. And that's, I think, the key crux of why this film works for me so well, and indeed for others, I'm sure. Namely, the way in which it just gives us the emotional punch and power, while never, ever letting go of the emotional complexity, which is, again, a reflection of the richness of the human experience. At the center of which is the great performance by Tommy Berggren and others here. This is a beautiful film, and it is part of this great set, Bo Widerberg's new Swedish cinema, and it is this film, which is Raven's End. The Criterion Collection has released this film, Raven's End, courtesy of this collector's set, this 4-disc Blu-ray set. It can be found on the second of such 4 Blu-ray discs, I should say. Collectively, the set is given spine number 1189. The films individually are not given a spine number individually, but that's okay. Once again, this film, Raven's End, will be on Blu-ray disc number 2. With regard to the presentation, we got some notes at the very start of the film, so when you press play on the film, here we have the Blu-ray disc with the menu, but when you press play, it'll give you immediately some information about the presentation. But you can also find information about the presentation on page 32 of this booklet, which is part of the set. With regard to Raven's End, it says, and I quote, "Raven's End is presented in its original aspect ratio of 1.37 to 1. This new digital master was created in 4K resolution from the 35mm original camera negative and a duplicate negative. The original monaural soundtrack was remastered from the 35mm optical track negative." So, once again, we have a film that I am watching for the first time, So I don't have any strong frame of reference to be able to provide any, say, comparative analytical comments about how this presentation looks and sounds and feels versus any previous presentations of this film. So I'm unable to make any comments in that department, unfortunately. So I apologize for that. But that being said, as a film that I'm encountering for the first time from the Criterion Collection's release here, I was already taken. There is a beauty, and again, the immediacy. I think that's such an important point. The feeling of immediacy between us, the viewers, and the subject matter, notwithstanding the fact that this is, again, from my vantage point, a place that I've never been to in my life. And this is a time period that is far removed from the time period that I'm at right now, right? The 1930s versus right now, we're in 2023. So that being said, there is such an immediacy. And that immediacy is, I think, thanks in large part to how the characters and the tenderness and the emotional intimacy are preserved and respected via Bo Widerberg's cinema. That cinema of Bo Widerberg, in turn, I think, is preserved and respected and enhanced, perhaps, by how this looks and sounds. There is a crispness, and there is that crispness and sharpness that I think gives the film, when one watches and listens to it, this closeness. I feel so close to this world when I'm seeing this film. It feels like, and there's that sense of the modern, as well as the sense of the tradition, which I think I'm beginning to understand is at the heart and center, or one of the hearts and centers of Bo Widerberg cinema. And that is enhanced and celebrated in the way this looks and sounds in this presentation, as it's being shown here, courtesy of the Criterion Collection. So I am very happy indeed. I think it is sparkling and shining. And there is a way in which I love too the way that, for instance, there's ways in which a lot of interiors are shown, and some of those interiors, when it's nighttime or daytime, there's a way in which the shadows they seem to be growing. I know it's sort of imperceptible, but there's a sense in which things are growing, but I know things are staying the same. I don't know how to explain it, but there's a way in which things seem to be enhanced, and I think that type of enhancement is in parallel with the dramatic enhancement of the ways that the plot turns when this film is going. So in other words, the black and white photography works really well with the dramatic turns of this film, which I feel are preserved really lovingly in this great presentation now as part of this Blu-ray package from Criterion. So I am, once again, thoroughly impressed with how this looks and sounds, courtesy of this set, Bo Widerberg's New Swedish Cinema. And now let us turn to the supplements, which can be found on the second disc here. So the second disc is the Blu-ray disc for Raven's End. This is the second of 4 discs, because we have 4 feature films, each with its own Blu-ray disc. And on each of such Blu-ray discs, we also have, together with the films themselves, we have a section for supplements. So that is also true for this Blu-ray disc number 2 for Raven's End. And when we press the supplements, we have the first of such supplements being Tommy Berggren. And it says, in this interview conducted by the Criterion Collection in 2021, actor Tommy Berggren remembers his long friendship and creative collaboration with director Bo Widerberg. So this is approximately 18 minutes. Tommy Berggren will appear, or has appeared, in these films by Bo Widerberg. Specifically, I should mention in his appearance in The Baby Carriage and this film Raven's End, and also a film on disc 3, which is Elvira Madigan. So my strong suggestion, in fact, would be to watch all of the films in the set. There's also another film, the 4th film, called Odalen 31. But if you want to watch the films with Tommy Berggren, or in fact, I would suggest maybe watching all the films first, indeed. And then after you've seen the films in the set, you can return to this great interview with Tommy Berggren. Because it's a reminder, and also showing us that this relationship, this professional relationship, and indeed because they are friends, this professional and personal relationship between actor and director, between Tommy Berggren and Bo Widerberg, whom he describes as Bossa. This is a really lovely relationship, another great example of actor-director collaborations in cinema, that between Bo Widerberg and Tommy Berggren. So he speaks here about working with Bo Widerberg, working on films like, as I mentioned, The Baby Carriage, and for example, in the context of The Baby Carriage, observing how Bo Widerberg and Jan Troell worked in this very almost improvisational way that worked wonders, and that it was this great reputation, even early on in their careers, that they generated in the context of Swedish cinema. So there's this great excitement. And he also mentions, too, a very famous scene, which we spoke about when we were talking about The Baby Carriage, a scene involving listening to Vivaldi, which is one of the famous scenes in that film. So that's lovely. He then, Tommy Berggren, turns our attention and his attention to working on Raven's End. There is a type of, again, approach to the life choices of this young man. It's a kind of coming-of-age film in many ways. Another great example of the use of camera and the black and white photography, and the preservation of a type of respect of the characters in question. So another great example of the working relationship between Bo Widerberg, Bosse, and Tommy Berggren. And then turning our attention to another film, which will be the third film in this set, which is Elvira Madigan. Tommy Berggren also appears in that film. A very memorable performance. We'll talk about Elvira Madigan in a separate video, but just speaking a little bit here about just details about that and the script, or the way that the script was made there as well. So we'll talk about that in the context of Elvira Madigan as well. But also he does speak here about working with professional actors and also working with non-professional actors, and also the approach and style of Bo Widerberg overall. So this is splendid. This is absolutely splendid. Again, there are many aspects of this that really are quite unfamiliar to me, because I'm still, admittedly, very new to the world of Bo Widerberg cinema. So he's speaking in these very intimate terms and about making references to writings. For example, he's I think my understanding is that the phrase Bossa is a nickname that is used by Tommy Berggren to describe Bo Widerberg. That's my understanding. There, I didn't catch that when I first saw this interview, but there's also information here about Tommy Berggren's description about how Bo Widerberg, or Bosse as he calls him, has a very almost almost a very provocative approach to and viewpoint regarding Swedish cinema, which is referred to, I think, the opening of this interview. So very fascinating approach indeed. And again, Tommy Berggren, I understand now, is a very key integral part of the world of Bo Widerberg cinema during this component of his career. So it's a great interview to have. Once again, this is from 2021, approximately 18 minutes. And the next supplement, the second of the two supplements, is approximately 7 minutes, and this is Bo and Nina Widerberg in this 1963 interview for the Swedish television program Filmkronikan. Director Bo Widerberg and his daughter Nina discuss Raven's End. It's a really delightful glimpse into the personal family life of Bo Widerberg, and with his young daughter Nina there, again being interviewed by the interviewer. We also get some details into the approach and production of Raven's End from Bo Widerberg's perspective. We also get some great insight and the physical presence and this sort of the character that is Bo Widerberg himself, and the like. And it's also an interesting, almost indirect reminder too, because of the family intimate setting of this interview, a reminder of the family intimate setting of the film itself. Raven's End is a family drama, so it's a great, delightful interview. Please check it out. It's approximately 7 minutes, again from 1963. But that concludes the supplements as can be found here. So only 2 supplements. I say only. They are great, really great in and of themselves. But in terms of quantity, they are, I admit, somewhat low. And at the end of watching them, they made me want to know more about this film, Raven's End. I would have loved to have seen, for example, another supplement maybe on the biography of Bo Widerberg, as I mentioned in the baby carriage discussion. Maybe some commentary track. That would have been great. We don't get any of those here, but what we do get is great, though it would have been nice to have seen other additions to the supplements. But we do have a wonderful essay which might be said to be addressing these aspects, and the essay and the writings are great here, so we will talk about that in a separate video. But what we do get is fascinating, and again, further insights into this marvelous film, Raven's End. And so now let us conclude by turning our attention to the booklet. Again, we'll talk about the booklet and the essay, the overarching essay, in a separate video, but for purposes of Raven's End, I should point your attention to the Raven's End specific writings or sections of this booklet. It's a great booklet, by the way. If you go to pages 6 and 7, you'll find a little synopsis, which I think matches what can be found on the website for Criterion, plus a picture that represents an aspect of Raven's End, or pictures, plus the cast and crew and aspects of the details of the film, the year and the running time, etc. And then the essay by Peter Cowie, it is an overarching essay, but I should point to the Raven's End specific parts of the Peter Cowie essay, which are on pages 19 and 20. So just for your information, it's a great essay, by the way. We will talk more about the Peter Cowie essay, the greatness of it, in a separate video. But for now, this is Raven's End. It is a marvelous film. It is a groundbreaking film. It is so important. It is another example of the genius that is Bo Widerberg and company. And so it's fantastic that it's part of this collection. Supplements, again, they're great as they are. It would have been nice to have seen more, but that's okay, because we are still getting the strength of those supplements already, plus the film itself, which is another wonderful reminder of the cinema of Bo Widerberg, and that is the film Raven's End. All right, my dear friends, so that's it for now. Let us continue our discussion of the other films in this great set, Bo Widerberg's New Swedish Cinema, in the remaining videos, so if you're interested. But in the meantime, and whatever the case may be, please continue to be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great movies, including the works of Bo Widerberg, including films in the Criterion Collection and beyond. So until the next video, my dear friends, stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.